Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the February 1st, 2021 Clovis City Council meeting. Given the current shelter-in-place order covering the state of California and the social distancing guidelines issued by federal, state, and local authorities, the city is implementing changes to participate in council meetings. The council chambers will be open to the public, but we are implementing social distancing policies and will limit the number of people who may be in council chambers. The meeting will be webcast and accessed at the link shown. Members of the public are encouraged to participate in meetings by accessing the webcast at the link shown, providing written comment at the same website, participating by phone, or coming to City Council meetings in person. We are practicing social distancing and can only accommodate a maximum of 16 people at one time. I will call the meeting to order and ask Councilmember Wanatu to lead us in the flag salute.
If I may, Mayor, I'm going to ask the president of the Exchange Club to please come and lead us, because it's been an honor serving alongside, and tonight's a special night, so I'm going to ask the president, Rick Snow, to lead us. Sorry to change that on you, Mayor.
Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. If the clerk will call roll, please.
Councilmember Ashbeck? Here. Councilmember Flores? Here. Councilmember Moanatua? Here. Councilmember Whalen?
Here.
Mayor Bessinger?
Here. I'd like to ask the council's indulgence if we can insert a presentation before we go further for the Exchange Club. It was inadvertently left off the agenda. Any conflict on this? None.
Yeah, let's put it at the end so you can stay through the whole meeting. Touche. Let's do it right now. Hurry.
And I will ask Lynn to do the presentation. Lynn.
I don't know. This seems dangerous now. So, our friends from the Exchange Club, stand on up. Stand up here 6 feet apart, or for wherever you are. Do whatever you want. Just stand around. Look at you all. Nice to see humans generally right now. All right. So, tonight we are honoring the Exchange Club. When Dawn was here a few weeks ago in a different, wearing a couple of hats, shared with us that the Exchange Club has decided to retire. And we talked about what a difference it has made in our community. So it's really our pleasure to offer this proclamation to the Exchange Club. Whereas the Clovis Exchange Club has been serving the Clovis community for almost 40 years. Rick, that's the same age as me, so it's been, okay, so we're good on that. Okay, got it. And whereas since 1917, the National Exchange Club has promoted Americanism, community service, youth programs, and child abuse awareness programs, which are implemented by its member clubs. And whereas the Clovis Exchange Club has supported scholarships for top Clovis Unified High School senior students and honored them at presentations with parents, guardians, teachers, counselors, and administrators present. And I will note my son was a recipient of that from Clovis East, which he's very proud of, as was I. And whereas the Clovis Exchange Club has placed freedom shrines throughout our high schools and the Clovis Veterans Memorial District, the Freedom Shrine is an impressive, permanently mounted facsimile collection of 30 of the most important and historic American documents, including the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution, and the Gettysburg Address. They show our nation's youth the strength and courage of our forefathers by allowing them to read with their own eyes the immortal words of inspired Americans who so decisively founded our country as a republic, dedicated to freedom and the rule of law. And whereas the Clovis Exchange Club has proudly supported the Clovis Hall of Fame, honoring those that have made our community the special place that it is today, actually not only proudly supported, but resurrected the Clovis Hall of Fame, so grateful for that. And whereas the Clovis Exchange Club has entrusted the Foundation for Clovis Schools with funds to carry on the tradition of scholarships for top Clovis Unified High School students and likewise has entrusted the Clovis Community Foundation with funds to assist the Clovis Hall of Fame Council with continuing its great mission. Is there page 2 or? Now, therefore, be it resolved that the citizens of Clovis do honor the Clovis Exchange Club tonight on its retirement after 40 terrific years of service to our community. And imagine that this proclamation was signed by our mayor, Drew Messenger, today. So congratulations and thank you all very much. Yep. You bet. Not with the proclamation. I give you this proclamation, but it needs a little work. That's pretty good on my last page.
Well, that was very nice. Thank you, folks. Now we come to the public comments portion of the meeting. This is an opportunity for members of the public.
Mayor?
Oh, I'm sorry. Don,
Just respond.
you
and-
certainly may.
And thank the city council, for providing us this honor. We very much appreciate it, and we will continue to stay involved in the community. And I also want to recognize, Councilmember Monatua, who has been an important part of the Exchange Club as well over the years. So, again, thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Don.
Mayor, can I say a couple words?
Yes,
Don,
absolutely.
before you guys go, you know, the first service club I joined when I first started community service in Clovis was the Exchange Club, and the Don Schreier, Terry Ann Sprates, Paul Sprates. I never remember his name, but the gentleman who graduated from Notre Dame, I just remember him as the Fighting Irish, and Shelby Cox, and a few others. And I appreciate what I learned through the service, that regardless of where you are at in life, and even when you are blessed so much, I saw your lives because I was just beginning my career, even in work, that you guys all gave up your time and money to give back to Clovis, and I appreciate that. And as I was starting to have children, and I went to the many events every year of where we recognize the Students of the Year, I listened to the parents and the kids' stories, and it helped me reflect upon kids that have good parents who direct them. When they gave their speeches, it was speeches of, I knew where I was going, this is where I'm going to go, this is what I'm going to do, and when I finish, I'm going to do this and then do that. And I compare that to me, and I go, I knew nothing what I was going to do, and I knew not where I was going to go. And it showed that, you know, how to be a better parent. And that, I think, is something in which the stories of the parents and what the Exchange Club gave to the community is something that is so valuable. So thank you all so much. And then as Scott, you came in and led the club in the last couple of years. Thank you for sacrificing, and I know you're so busy with with Rotary already, and for you to come and to lead us this last couple of years. Thank you so much. So I owe a lot to the Exchange Club. Always have a special place in my heart. So thank you very much.
Can I just make one quick comment too?
Yes, Lynn?
I'll just echo that relative to the Hall of Fame, and that's really how I came, besides my son Doug, but beyond Doug, was really the work we did in the Hall of Fame. So I think if it wasn't for the Exchange Club, that probably would have gone by the wayside, and that is such an important event for the city of Clovis, and we must never stop telling our history, and I think that really was the spirit that some of those meetings, I'm sure we were all like, okay, wait, why was this a good idea? I know it was a good idea, but why is that a good idea? But it always worked out, and the stories were impressive, and celebrating how we got here is why Clovis is a special place. So I know you've entrusted that to the Community Foundation, I know our committee will still work and work on that, but that has been and will continue to be a really important legacy of the Exchange Club as well. So hats off to all of you, and again, thanks for your service. Thanks for being here tonight, too.
Thank you. Now we come to the public comments portion of the meeting. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the City Council on any matter within the Council's jurisdiction that is not listed on the agenda. In order for everyone to be heard, please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less, or 10 minutes per topic. Anyone wishing to be placed on the agenda for a specific topic should contact the City Manager's office to submit correspondence at least 10 days before the desired date of appearance. Do we have anybody in chambers who wish to address the Council? Happy 21, Mr. Pierce.
Thank you.
You're one of the few people that's recognizable with a mask on, because you've got this beard that's so distinctive that there's no question who you are.
Yeah, I sometimes go into different shops and they go, oh yeah, you're so-and-so and you gotta have this. I've only been here once or twice.
Exactly.
How do you know it's me?
That's funny.
I just couldn't understand. But I thought I'd let you know what's going on with me right now. A little bit of a problem that I'm feeling that's building. I don't know if you're familiar with the Employees Union Bank at Fowler and Herndon.
Educational Employees Credit Union. Yeah.
Yeah, their bank. Okay, I'm a member there. Coming up there about a month or so ago, for some reason the parking lot's getting real full, over full. So when I came up and seeing all the parking spaces full, I said, well, I'll wait and see someone pull out. Well, someone comes walking up from behind me, screaming and yelling and cussing at me for stopping. You know, there's not much space. You can't cruise around any parking lot. I'm stopping, waiting. And he's all upset because I'm holding up the cars going to the Dutch Brothers coffee shop. And he can't pull out of his parking spot. And he wants me to go drive off so they can go on through to the Dutch Brothers. But I'm like, I want to go to the bank, and I've got to park here. So then he pulls up alongside when he does get out and starts screaming and yelling at me, and I sort of gave a gesture to him, and he started going crazy. I thought he was going to pull a gun. But he finally left. And then I found a parking spot. Then another time I came up on a Sunday, nobody really there. I pull up to the kiosk, noticed someone else pulling up next to me on a kiosk. And they get out and they go over to work at the Dutch Brothers Coffee. So I'm like, can't you park a little closer to where you work instead of taking up the kiosk space, you know, the ATM kiosk? But then the third one, the parking lot was full again, and somebody had parked right in front of the kiosk where it is marked off, striped off for people to walk through and handicapped to be able to get to a ramp to go there. Which is kind of upset. I went ahead and took a picture of it. I was going to show it to you, but my printer broke down. Well, after I used the kiosk and came back, I think she must have gotten her paycheck from Dutch Brothers and got in the car, and she started calling me names and cussing at me. So, very upsetting what this Dutch Brothers seems to be doing with the traffic control and people driving. You see where they put up little signs that Dutch Brothers entrance here, which is the one space that comes up and cuts across there, then they got to come around, and cars going back and forth pretty heavy, let alone what's parking there. I've had a similar problem, well, not as bad, with the Starbucks at Clovis in Herndon. They get a big long line going across, and I can't get across the auto parts store because they have such a long line in there, blocking things off. I don't know if you can do anything to change their traffic pattern or some control that's going to be a little safer, a little more responsible. Put a police camera out there. Definitely need to change something on your planning for these shopping centers and allowing drive-through places where their location is, where they're not going to be a danger to other people in the area.
Thanks, sir.
Mayor, can I ask Paul a question? I just want to make
Certainly.
sure I understand what you described. So there were 3 occasions that you've described when you wanted to go to the kiosk at the Educational Employees Credit Union has set out there.
Yes.
On the first occasion, there wasn't any parking in the immediate vicinity of the kiosk. And so
Well, there wasn't any parking along that whole strip that you can park.
on that side, that would be the eastern side of the shopping center, as I understand it. And so you stopped your car in that area, waiting for somebody to pull out of a parking space so you could use it. And I'm not faulting you in this area. I just want to make sure that I'm clear in this point. You did not drive to an area that would be, for example, north of the shopping center and park and then walk back to the kiosk, because from your perspective, you shouldn't have to do that because your kiosk is on the eastern side of the shopping center, and so you think that you should be able to park there even if there's no parking available. You think that you should stop your car and wait for parking to become available.
Yeah, other
And
cars
then-
do it too.
And then when traffic gets backed up because you've stopped there, and they get upset at you, you think that they are in the wrong for getting upset at you for stopping there. And that was the first time, right?
Right, and I noticed that when the guy went back to his car, the other cars that were going to go to the Dutch Brothers just went ahead and pulled around me and went on by.
Okay. And then the second time, there was no issue that you noticed because it was a Sunday and it wasn't very crowded there. And then on the last time you were there, there was somebody who parked illegally into a handicap stall, and that appeared to be an employee that you...
Well, it wasn't even a handicapped. I mean, yeah, they were parking in the handicapped spots too, but this was it was a marked off area for pedestrians only, because
I see.
this is where the handicapped have to come through, and this is where you have to do your social spacing lines.
Okay.
You know, when she's parked there, you've got to like wait for someone to come out. You're out in the middle of the road area waiting. You can't get to the kiosk to keep your social spacing.
All right. Thank you. I just wanted to get clear on that. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Any other person inside council chambers wish to address the council on any item that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, do we have anybody on the internet?
None.
Mr. Clerk, other than the letter we got from
Mr. Quintero.
Mr. Quintero, any other correspondence?
No, that's it.
I will close public comment. Before we go to the remainder of the agenda, I just wanted to address something very quickly. I think as the mayor and a non-candidate in this election cycle, I think it falls to me to comment on last week's events regarding campaign signs. The city has a procedure for the proper placement and removal of campaign signs. Candidates receive the rules from the city clerk when they get their candidate packet. Signs that are placed in violation can be removed by the owner of a property or can be reported to the city clerk, and the city clerk will contact the candidate and ask them to either get permission or remove the sign. Signs placed on public property can be removed by the city and stored and returned to the candidate. It's one thing to assume the owner's role of removing illegally placed signs if indeed they didn't have permission and there was an actual violation, but it's a whole other thing to retain the property of others. The signs should have been returned to the candidate or turned over to the city. There were irresponsible assertions made that our police department both mishandled this incident and that there was an unethical intent on behalf of the city and its police department. I'm concerned that there was a deflection of personal responsibility for a bad decision. Our citizens have a very high expectation of the conduct of their elected officials and for those who wish to serve them. I want to say that last week's incidents were an anomaly, and they're not a foreshadowing of a change in the way we're going to conduct our affairs in the future. I'll invite any other member of council if they want to say anything. Seeing none, we will continue in regards to ordinances and resolutions. With respect to the approval of resolutions and ordinances, the reading of the title shall be deemed a motion to waive a reading of the complete resolution or ordinance, and unless there is a request by a council member that the resolution or ordinance be read in full, further reading of the resolution or ordinance shall be deemed waived by the unanimous consent of the council. Now we come to the consent calendar. Items considered routine in nature are placed upon the consent calendar. They will all be considered and voted upon in one vote as one item unless a council member requests individual consideration. A council member's vote in favor of the consent calendar is considered and recorded as a separate affirmative vote in favor of each action listed. Motions in favor of adoption of the consent calendar are deemed to include a motion to waive the reading of any ordinance or resolution on the consent calendar. For adoption of ordinances, only those that have received the unanimous vote upon introduction are considered consent items. We have several items on the consent calendar, but item number 5, Councilmember Flores, you're going to abstain from that?
Yes, I'm going to recuse myself from voting on item number 5 because I have a financial interest in property that's very close to this location, and therefore I will not vote on item number 5. I will remain in the chamber, though.
Okay, thank you, Jose. Any member of the council want to pull any item on the consent calendar? Seeing none, does any person in chambers wish to have an item on the consent calendar pulled? Seeing none, do we have any comments online?
No.
Mr. Clerk, did we didn't get any correspondence?
No.
Okay, I will come back to the council for consideration or action.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent calendar with the exception of item number 5.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
And I will make a motion to approve item number 5.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0 with 1 abstention. Now we come to public hearings. Public hearing is a consideration within a regular or special meeting of the City Council in which notice has been given and may be required. When a public hearing is continued, noticing of the adjourned item is required as per Government Code 54955.1. Item number 9, consider approval of a resolution adopting a resolution amending fiscal year 2019-2020 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan and amending the fiscal year 2020-2021 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan. And Andy Hessler is our presenter. Andy.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. So we have amended our action plan this year more than I think I have in my whole entire career. We are thinking this will be the last time for this cycle. And the reason for this is that the city was able to take Federal CARES Act funding and some of our CDBG allocation savings from past projects and put them into 2 programs where we expended a little over almost $1.2 million to help out our community. The Encino Meals program was $343,000, and the Emergency Housing Payments program was $947,000 in funds that were able to assist households. The Senior Meals program provided over 23,000 meals to seniors in need, and those meals came from Clovis restaurants that were in desperate need of business. And the Emergency Housing program provided mortgage and or rent assistance to 254 households. A little word on rent assistance. The federal government approved $25 billion in funding for further rental assistance. That funding is not coming through the same mechanism. We are tracking where it is going. It's either going to the County of Fresno or the State of California. Staff has been in contact with the county in tracking what the state is doing to ensure that those funds are made available to our community through whatever channel it ends up being, whether it's allocated to the city or to a third party or other agency. We will make sure that our residents are aware. We do have residents that are interested and need those funds. So in order to shift all the funds that we did, we had to cancel some projects in the past, which were some of the amendments we had done over this past year. These projects were approved in the past. Council had approved them. And in order to shift funds around between years, we had to cancel them. Now we are asking to reinstate them with funding that has become available so those projects can come to fruition. That's the Dennis Beverly Alley project and the ADA Improvements project. Both of those projects are ready for construction soon, especially the ADA Improvement project, and we'd like to see those improvements in our community. So we recommend amending the 2019-20 Annual Action Plan for the ADA Improvements project and amending the 2020-21 Annual Action Plan for the Dennis Beverly Alley Reconstruction project. And that concludes my report. I'm here for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Andy. Any questions for staff? Lynn, excuse me.
And, yeah. Do we still have many alleys left to improve, Andy, sort of with the major higher census tracts, CDBG sort of census tracts?
There's a good chunk of alleys that still could use some help in the community, but we've been working on improving those over the past, in my time, nearly 15 years and made a ton of progress.
Okay.
So
yeah.
There definitely are still some out there that are dirt or very deteriorated.
Okay, thank you. But we have done quite a bit as well, because I've driven by and so many have improved immensely.
Yeah. I'm not sure how many lane miles have been completed, but I know they've even been a big help in the public safety realm of allowing patrolling through those areas as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions, any other questions for staff? Seeing none, I will open this to members of the public. Any member of the public present in chambers wish to address council on this item? Seeing none, do we have anybody on the internet?
No.
Mr. Clerk, do we get any correspondence?
No.
Okay, I'll close public comments and come back to council for discussion or for action.
Make a motion that we amend the 1920 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan and the fiscal year 2021 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Now we have a nice item. Item number 10, consider approval naming the new transit facility the William Harry Armstrong Transit Center and naming the senior center the Clovis Senior Activity Center, a Smith Camp Family Legacy. Shauna Halterman is our presenter. Shauna.
There we go. All right, so this evening for your consideration, we have the naming of two of our soon-to-be constructed facilities. The first is the new senior center. As we discussed previously, the Smith Camp Family Foundation has pledged $1 million for the new center, and therefore it's fitting that they have the ability to name the facility. What they have chosen, and this is an artist rendering, it's not necessarily a final version, but it would be the Clovis Senior Activity Center, a Smith Camp Family Legacy. So it's still going to be called the Clovis Senior Activity Center, but their name would be accompanying it. No one from the Smith Camp family is here tonight. They were here a few weeks ago, so they just sent it along with their blessings. In addition, for your consideration, and this is a change, I'll let you know in a second, is the naming of the new transit center. And I know we've talked about this in the past, but now we're here to make it official. And that would be naming the transit center after Harry Armstrong. There is a typo. It's correct in the sign there, but after speaking with Harry's family, we needed to make one change. In the staff report, it says it's the William Harry Armstrong Transit Center, but it should be the William H. Harry Armstrong Transit Center. So this is correct, but the staff report is not. So that is the correction, though. It should be William H. Harry Armstrong Transit Center. And, of course, considering all of the many contributions Harry made to both the community and transportation, his deservedly so that it should be named after Harry. Two of his children are here, Tom and Jim are present, and I know that they want to speak. And then I'm open for any questions, and I'm sure Lynn has some comments too.
Thank you. Any questions from council before we hear a presentation from the family? Seeing none, I will open this to any member of the public who wish to address us. And good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name is Tom Armstrong. I'm here with my brother Jim tonight, and we thank the council and in particular Shauna Halterman for inviting us for this splendid award or this recognition for Dad. On behalf of our father, our late father, we want to thank the city of Clovis, its residents, and the council for this high honor. For those of you who knew Dad, you know that over his nearly 50 years with the city of Clovis, that Clovis was his way of life. He embraced Clovis with everything that he had. For those of you who didn't know Dad or Harry, simply look around the city and you can see his fingerprints on so many different things. There's parks, pathways, the rodeo, firehouses, the city hall, council chambers, the police department. The list goes on. And now the new transit facility, and what a beautiful rendering. In the late 60s, when Dad first started on the planning commission and then moved to the council after that, Clovis was a town of 10 to 12,000 people, and today I think the population exceeds 105,000. The Clovis transit system serves a vital function in Clovis, providing affordable transportation for those in need in its constituency. Dad championed this cause. Harry would be humbled and honored to be here today to receive this honor. It would mean more to him than I can really express. And our family, once again, thanks you for this high honor on his behalf. And we wish everybody in the city of Clovis the best with the Smith Camp and the Transit Center. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Any other member of the public? Well, we want to say anything to Tom and his family before we move on? I just, real quickly, Tom, tonight when I walked in, I walked past the 2 trees that were planted in your dad's honor, and I immediately, it brought me back to think about your dad and the things he's done, his legacy. That was very nice. Thank you very much, Mayor. Any other member of the public wish to address council on this item in council chambers? Do we have anybody online?
No.
We get any correspondence, Mr. Clerk?
No.
I will come back to council for comments.
So can I read the statement?
Certainly.
So I'd like to offer a statement provided to me by Diane Webster Armstrong, Harry's wife, who could not be with us tonight, just to be part of the celebration tonight. And Diane wrote this. Council and staff, thank you for the invitation to tonight's meeting where the Transit Center will be officially named in Harry's memory. I am closely following the stay-at-home orders for COVID-19. Seems wise at 88. Otherwise, I would have been there in person. Harry loved Clovis. Harry loved the City Council and those of you who he had the pleasure to work with over all of the years. And Harry loved transportation. He would recount stories of his work in transportation, the Measure C tax measures, the road improvements, building a Clovis transit system, and most notably, Highway 168. He knew that that highway would transform Clovis and leave a legacy for generations to come, and that it has. One of the happiest days of Harry's last 2 years, much of that spent in hospitals and nursing homes, was when the staff visited and told Harry about the name of the new transit center, the William H. Harry Armstrong Transit Center. They presented him with a rendering of the new building with his name on it, and it made him so very happy. That picture remained in his room until his last day. Harry would also be very touched to share this item tonight with the Schmidt-Camp family and their generosity to the Clovis Senior Center. Earl and Harry, they were a pair of Clovis legends if there ever was one. Thank you for the chance to be a part of tonight's meeting. Harry would be so proud and so honored, as we all were, of his work over a lifetime to make Clovis a better place for all to live. So.
Thank you, Lynn.
Cannot be here tonight, but wanted to share that. So thanks for letting me do that.
Thank you. Any other member of council? Fong? Gotta turn that light on.
Yeah. I want us to, think about the future and how we protect what we do today. So what I mean by that is, how do we make it so that one day in the future, 50, 10, whatever, someone doesn't come back and say, I found this about Mr. Armstrong, I found this about Mr. Smithcamp, name goes down. Because we are honoring the goodness of the people. But if you want to find fault, you will find fault in all of us. And so how do we do that? You see, how do we make it so that way it cannot come down? How do we make it so that way no one can cancel the decisions that we have made this evening that this community honors now? And that is very important because what we do today can be changed by a petition potentially, but by a resolution of one of us and say, I didn't like people who farmed because it destroyed the land, and, you know, Mr. Smithcamp was a farmer, and so, you know, off with the name, and they'll find something about Mr. Armstrong as well. And so that's, how do we protect it? And I think that's important because we can be the example and lead something in which, what Ms. Winkle's, why do I forget his name? Mr. McDonald Park, right? How does it stay? How do we keep Armstrong, the name on here? How do we keep the Smithcamp name? And I ask my peers, I ask the city attorney, I ask the staff, you know, how do we ensure so that way it does stay, and how do we prevent it? Or it's going to change one day, Vaughn. You know, that you can say all you want, but one day 5 people can come and change the decision of 120,000 people today. So I just want that. And so I just want to give that out. And so I wanted to keep the honor and don't want to destroy it that way, but I also want that.
City Attorney, do you have a real quick input on that? Obviously, we kind of caught you flat-footed on that.
Yeah, no, I understand Councilman Montua's sentiment. Any future council, though, would have that ability to do that. We can't legally bind a future council to a course of action today, but I think the council itself, understanding what the history of Harry was and his commitment to the community, obviously, you know, if for some reason something comes up in the future, that's a consideration for the council at that time if there's, you know, a desire to do so. But we can't, you know, the council doesn't really have the authority to do something tonight that would prevent a future council from doing something if they so chose. So.
Thank you. Jose?
You know, I'm with you, Long, because, you know, we have 2 pillars that we're honoring today. I think, because I think this is also honoring Earl and Harry of our community. Yeah? And Muriel. Both, all these pillars that, but I like both stories because these are men that, self-made men of, and Muriel. No, and the moms. And the moms, too, the moms, I'm sorry. But they came to this community, they weren't from here originally, and they came here, and so I like my narrative. I'm sorry. They came here with little, and part of this greatest generation, and through hard work, perseverance, they started their families here, and one did farm, the other one got into politics and went through farming. One made an empire, and the other one did too, because look, we are an empire of this great city. And his greatest fault that they will challenge and cancel him for is because being a Raider fan. See, that will be his downfall. That will be his downfall for Harry Armstrong. But I forgive him. I forgive my wife, therefore I have to forgive him. So, no, it is true that 5 other people down the road can take their names off of these things, but we won't let them. As long as we survive, we won't let that happen. I know other cities are canceling great heroes of our nation. Us, especially us two who are early arrivals, our recent arrivals to this country, through our parents and you personally, we came here because of these great men. I became a council member because of the people that were here before me. I sat as a kid in that chamber wanting to be just like the guys that were up there, and Harry was one of them. And I worked for Earl Smithcamp. I literally picked peaches for him and packed his fruit. So, and I wanted to do something more than just that. And I had the opportunity because of the work I was able to do. And so we will, hopefully our children will understand that our parents and ourselves came to this country because other people came before us that made us a better community so that we could live and strive and thrive. And we won't let that happen. We will preserve the names of Armstrong and Smithcamp because they have left a legacy. And so as long as I'm here, I did my DNA, and I'm 63% Native American, and therefore I'll put some kind of hex on them if they do something. You know, the law may not do it, but we have other ways.
Thank you, Jose. I think if we're going to talk about Muriel, I think we also need to mention Janine, because you couldn't say Harry without saying Harry and Janine. So she was a driving force behind Harry, and she deserves some recognition in this too. Bob.
Thank you. It is really good to see you, Tom, and you, Jim. Tom, I get to see you a little bit more frequently than Jim, but Jim, I want you to know that you sent me some correspondence a while back, and I still have it, and it's meant a lot to me, and I appreciate it very much. I've also kept this. You can't see it from there, but it's one of the buttons that we have, and I keep it in my drawer. Lynn pulled it out because we're sitting in different spots these days, but it's really great to see him in this photograph. It's a great photo of him, and at the top it says, "Do the right thing." So, you know, the conversation about, you know, others, you know, taking names down, of course they can do that, but what Harry has left us with is that motto that we try to follow, not just up here, but hopefully out in the community, and it's do the right thing. So I'm not too worried about it happening here in the city of Clovis. I know it's happening in other communities. I mean, we can't guarantee the future, but he has set us off on the right course, and just through those 4 words that we hold true to here, it has meant a lot to us, and so I'm really thankful that we're able to name the center out of after him. I really like too the Smithcamp family legacy. It feels like it almost should say another Smithcamp family legacy, but it is humbling to be able to walk in the shadows of those that have gone on before us, and it's humbling because you know you can never reach the heights that they did. And I don't mean just in fame or money or anything like that. They were so committed, and it's hard to be as committed as they were to the institutions that they served. So anyway, I'm glad that in some small way we can return to them this little bit of honoring, and not just through these buildings and the names on them, but by the way that we handle ourselves and live our lives and perform our roles up here as leaders of the community today. So I just am really happy to be here, and I'd like to go ahead and make the motion unless there were other.
Just make a comment from.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Lynn. Go ahead.
Just to add on. So I hope your sister is well. Sorry that she's not here with you tonight, but I know she's was a part of all of this as well. I've really missed Harry a lot lately. I sort of am secretly glad he's not watching what's happening to the state of politics generally, because no matter how fiercely he believed in something, he also was a very civil person, at least out loud. You guys probably saw the uncivil part of Harry, but that's a dad thing. That's really good. We won't cancel the name because of that. We all have those stories. But I have thought about him a lot and sort of how do you get through difficult times. I think he was a good kind of steady course on that. But I think just everything that the folks have said, I think I visited your dad almost every day of the last 2 years of his life, one place or another. And so I learned a lot from him and really was grateful for those times to hear him talk about trading chickens and, chickens! Oh, no. Anyway, trading, those stories of early Clovis days. And those stories are gone for him to tell us the story, but they will live on in this building, which is really a fitting tribute to your dad and all that he has done in the city of Clovis. So Well, yeah, and then they probably traded chickens together for all I know. And then to the Schmidt-Camp family who's not here tonight, maybe they're listening, I just echo Bob, their legacy is also profound. I love that the campus at Fresno State has a Schmidt-Camp house, and we have one too. I really think that's awesome. And their family is still, they got a lot of Schmidt camps. There's enough of those generations. You guys got to have more kids or grandkids or something to kind of come back and lobby if anybody ever wants to change the name. But I think the Hall of Fame discussion earlier, we can never lose how we got to where we are today. Clovis is not a transaction. It is not an event of today. It's really the collection of all of the things over time. And we got here because of the leadership of folks like Earl and Harry and Muriel and Janine and others in his family, you all, as he went along. So we are just a really lucky city, and I think the fact that we can still honor our history is why we are different. I think you ask people in the city of Fresno, like, how did the city start and where was the heart of downtown? And people are like, I don't know. I don't know where it is, and I can't remember the first mayor. And we've been able to hold on to that, and your dad's 46 years of service was a big part of that. But I think that's a really special quality of our city. So thank you to you two for being here. Our regards to your sister. Peace to your parents. Peace to Earl and Muriel, and gratitude to the Schmidt-Camp family as well. So we are one lucky city. Thanks.
Thank you. Sure.
May we use first names? Joe, I too worked for Earl, okay? And I did. But Vong, he wanted to make this in perpetuity, right? We have counsel here, and I'm an attorney, retired. Didn't really practice under the government code very much, but on the administrative item, my question to counsel would be, this administrative items need to pass by simple majority, is that correct? Okay, and can the motion to approve the administrative item, could it be made such that to remove the names, as Vong has said, that it would take a supermajority in votes to remove the names? Would that accomplish what Vong had requested? Is that possible in an administrative item?
I hesitate to answer that off the cuff because I haven't looked into it, but I think I would say no. I don't know that we could impose, again, any additional condition on it at this point, but perhaps that could be revisited at some point in the future. If you wished, I could take a look into it and see if it's something that we could add as a future condition.
Really earning your money tonight. Thank you, Tom. Is that?
Yeah, it's just a thought, and sometimes you can vote on things to do that, and pass it that way. And if it comes back that you can't, somebody can challenge it down the road. Then it's done and protects your concern. And I think guys like Earl and Harry are, they've been around for a long time, and I don't think it would ever happen, but I certainly understand your concern, and I think it was a very nice thought and gesture. So thank you, and I'm just trying to help you find a solution, because that's what I did for 35 years.
Thanks,
Thank
Tom.
you.
I just pray that the world gets some sanity back somewhere and that we won't be having this conversation, but maybe that's just too much. That might be a bridge too far, but I'm not sure.
Maybe at some point in the future, we could have a discussion about both naming of public facilities and renaming of public facilities, and maybe that has to be a supermajority. That's something that we could potentially discuss at a later time. This is time for a motion. Bob, did you want to make the motion? I know. All right.
I'd be honored. So I move that we approve the naming of the new transit facility, the William H. Harry Armstrong Transit Center, and the naming of the new senior center, the Clovis Senior Activity Center, a Smith Camp Family Legacy.
And I will gladly second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Tom, Jim, could we have challenge coins? Yes. City of Clovis challenge coins. Oh, yeah, good idea.
They can tell the brothers.
Yeah, the brothers will tell each other what to do. The older brother.
You can argue which one's a better looking one, or younger, or however you want to do it.
Mayor, if I may, I know I made that statement without really explaining it. You know, if we ever forget where we come from, it's kind of like a person who forgets who they are because they lost memory. You're no one, right? You're like, who are you? I don't know. And so it's the same thing. If we ever lose the people who made us and forget this person, that person, why this building is here, that building is there, we're no longer Clovis because it's just a building. And so that's why I'm strongly in favor of trying to protect, you know, the history and the legacy. So.
Thank you. Item 11, receive and file 2020 Clovis Trail Count Report. Colleen Vidinoff is our presenter. Colleen.
Thank you, Mayor. See, I already messed it up. Thank you for introducing the item. Good evening, council members. What I have for you tonight is our 2020 Clovis Trail Count. The City of Clovis has completed the 6th annual trail count in 2020 to document the volume of trail usage per day and week along 4 Clovis trails and 2 paseos. The traffic on the trails and the paseos has a wide range of volumes, daily use, and modal splits. And again, you all know that this has been a crazy year, but we went ahead and did the trail counts anyway for completeness sake. We wanted to see, and it is absolutely fascinating. I've already had a couple of people reach out to me from COG and also from ITE Berkeley because we have the permanent counters, and they wanted to know, hey, what's your trail use? And I already said, hey, I'm going to share the report with council tonight. I'll send it to you guys later, and it'll be on our website as well. So this is our 6th year, and absolutely amazing that with the counts, it shows that there's over 3 million trail users this past year. And I'll show you, in addition to our usual 3 trails that we did, we added a little bit more, so it did expand, but it's just absolutely amazing. And we know that the usage will continue to increase with improved connectivity. And the results obviously show that the trails offered our public an amazing opportunity to have social distance, but also be physically active and keep the mind and body healthy. It was just, it was a reprieve that our residents really appreciated. The purpose of the trail counts, we do this again, this is our 6th year. We document the volume of the trail usage. We extrapolate that weekly usage out to an annual amount. We use as objective data for grant funding opportunities, and also to give us an idea of, hey, where people are using it for further planning and design approaches and to guide operations and maintenance as well. The methodology, we use 4 counters that we borrow from COG. They have a heat sensor that we attach to a tree usually to try to keep it inconspicuous, and then it has 2 tubes. And that way the heat sensor gets everybody, and the bikes are counted out, so it's subtracted out, so we can tell peds versus bikes. This year, we also did it along the 2 paseos, but 2 paseos we could not attach the bikes because paseos are always concrete, and you can't put nails in concrete. So we weren't able to separate the bikes and the peds, but we still were able to get an overall usage. We also have the 2 permanent bike and pedestrian trail counters that we have along the Dry Creek Trail and along the Old Town Trail. And you can see that's the picture right there of the Old Town Trail. It's at Clovis and Sierra. We also have the other one at Clovis and Nees. And I think you guys are pretty familiar with those. It resets every year, so we have an annual count that allows us. And both of those 2 trails, for the permanent counters, they are along high-use areas, and they're along trails that have high connectivity. You know, the Old Town Trail connects to all the Fresno trails, and then it also connects to the Dry Creek Trail, which is an absolutely wonderful. So this year, we added the Sierra Gateway Trail, which is our newest trail out by Harlan Ranch, and that eventually will connect to the Enterprise Trail. Still not sure on that location, but somewhere along 168, somewhere along there. So we added the Sierra Gateway Trail. We did that for a week, and we also did 2 paseo locations in the Loma Vista area, one near Locan and Whitmore, which is, we purposely picked that one because it's in between 2 parks, and we kind of wanted an idea of where a highest usage could be. And we also did one, excuse me, near Pasatiempo Park, just on the southwest corner in that neighborhood, trying to get an idea. So again, we did our standard counting time. We do it for 1 week, and we still did it in spite of the fires, in spite of COVID, and we still wanted to get the data. And it is important to clarify that the usage doesn't always mean the number of people using the trail. And I know Councilman Whalen, we had fun when we first installed this. You know, 2 people walking together, it only counts as 1 sometimes. You guys have to, you know, stagger a little bit. And it's okay. There's an error, and we're fine with it because it just does give us an idea of what it is. And it gives us more of a trail traffic volume instead of an actual number, because 1 person can walk the entire Old Town Trail and be counted, you know, multiple times. But we do know the volume, and that's what we're looking at right now.
Haven't you seen him go around and around?
Actually, he has been a great source for me because a few times we had a glitch, and he let me know, hey, this thing is not counting me, so please get it fixed. That's how I know I exist, when I
You might be a vampire.
You do matter, yes. And I apologize, this does not show up as well. In the PDF, you guys can see it pretty well, but I do want to just share some numbers with you. Just the astounding numbers. The Sierra Gateway Trail, the highest weekly use we had at one of the locations was 2,300, and this is a combined bike and ped, but there were 2,300 people that used that trail in 1 week. The Loma Vista Paseos, at the highest location, it was over 1,700. The Old Town Trail at Willow and Nees was 4,600, over 4,600 weekly users total. The Enterprise Trail was 2,800, and that was near the ponding basin, which is right by the houses. And the Dry Creek Trail, you guys are not going to believe that one, it was over 6,000 users in 1 week that we counted during that October. And that was including during the fire. And this is a little different than last year and the last 2 or 3 years, because usually the Old Town Trail is our highest use. Kind of just south of Railroad Park is usually our highest. But this year, it was the Dry Creek Trail, and I'm assuming, you know, probably because of COVID, people met at the trailhead, and then they did their nice walk, or maybe they went down the Old Town and they continued on the trailhead up to or along Dry Creek Trail up to the trailhead. I have no idea, but it was astounding how many people were using the trails. And this is a graph to show you the average daily use, and I've got another on the next slide. So we've got the Old Town Trail. So this is an average daily use combined, and you can see on the Old Town Trail at Willow and Nees, it was over 600, and that's a day. That's what is absolutely amazing. And then at the Dry Creek Trail, I mean, there was over 858 at the trailhead in one day use. And that's an average. That's, you know, so there's some days it was a lot higher on the weekends and some days a little bit lower. The Enterprise Trail, as you can see, it's over 400 near the basin, and that's a daily use average. And sorry, we'll go to the next one. And the Sierra Gateway Trail and the Loma Vista Paseos, you can see they're a little bit lower, but again, they're not connected to anything really yet. And the Paseos are more of just a wide sidewalk. You know, it's for those neighborhoods in the Loma Vista area to have connectivity, to go to the parks. But it's not like the other three trails where someone, or especially the other two, the Old Town and the Dry Creek, where somebody will actually drive and park in a parking lot and use the trail, right? The Paseos and the Sierra Gateway Trail are more of the neighborhoods use. But it's still fascinating that over 300 people were using that trail during that week, and that was in September when the fires were really bad. And in my report also, our air quality was 5 almost in September and October. They, you know, don't go outside, and people don't care. They just needed to get out of the house because of COVID. And obviously our trails were just phenomenal. And this is our annual extrapolation where you can see we added the Sierra Gateway and the Loma Vista Paseos. So again, we had 1.8 last year. Now again, we've got, 4 more additional counting sites, but if you look at the counts at, say, at Willow, 191,000 extrapolated last year, and this year was 296. And again, the way we do the extrapolation is we take that 1 week count, multiply it by a factor, and expand it out for the entire 52 weeks. And this is a National Ped and Bike Foundation. They have this standard that we've done, and I've compared it with other cities and feel very confident with it, especially when I compared it to our actual permanent trail counters, and I feel confident in the results. So anyway, over 3 million. It's just astounding. Now, this one is my favorite. I'm such a data geek. So if you guys can see, the green line is the trail use, and these are the counts at our 2 permanent counters. We installed it in April of 2018. So the dark blue line is when it started in 2018, and that's the year of 2018. Now, then you got the black line, which is 2019. So you can see, okay, those are pretty normal, and you feel confident. And then the green one is 2020. And you guys can see when COVID started. You see that spike, and then it gets out of control in May. And if you look at, 7,500 in May of 2019 compared to 17,500 in May of 2020. And then you can see how, okay, use decline. People are, it's hot, but then, and then the fire started, and then there's a little spike again, and then it continues. So anyway, you can definitely see, it's just absolutely amazing. And the annual trail use in 2019 compared to 2020, in that little chart on the left, 133 compared to 258 on the Dry Creek Trail. So our trails were highly, highly valued during this pandemic, and we're very grateful for them. And this is a picture I took along the trail during March, right after COVID hit and all the lockdown, and this was just an inspiration of our community and how we build each other up. We're going to help get through this, and things will get better. This is all temporary, so I thought that was a really, it gave me chills, made me think about this is what our city does. We build each other up. So in summary, of course, you guys can see how the trails and the Paseos are an invaluable part of our Clovis way of life, and we're very grateful, and there were over 3 million trail users that we can confidently say used it. And as we continue to improve our connectivity, our amenities, and things like that, and continue to look at where we need to do things. And I do want to share that this year, we're going to be working with a consultant to do an update to our active transportation plan. We do this, every few years. So with this consultant, we're going to look at, for sure, trail connectivity, and we're going to look at promoting, equity in trail use and programming, and make sure that it serves the entire community. We're going to look at future trail connections, possible even additional locations for permanent counters that, right now these serve the 2 main trails. They're almost like regional trails, and that's what we want to see. So hopefully we'll look at possibly, you know, in the future, seeing other locations for permanent counters, additional trails, you know, the connections, and even the commercial sites, because you can see the commercial connectivity encourages trail use as well. And that will be done hopefully by this fall. And that concludes my report, and I'm open for any questions.
Thank you, Colleen. Any questions for Vong?
Yes. This is Vong speaking. And what I would like to say is, it's great to be in America. No, I'm kidding. Just kidding. I've lost my train of thought. I do want to say, I love seeing how excited you are. It's like, it just makes me smile. Anyway, it's just wonderful to see. So thank you for that. And as we get ready to embark on the extension of Measure C, I know you will all be engaged, Renee and others, but we should be thinking about what we may want to see in the next funding cycle of Measure C, because certainly trails, maybe maintenance of trails, other expansion of trails, et cetera, will be part of that. So I think really Clovis is the leader of the trail system. I know other cities have smaller versions, but be thinking about what that might look like if we move forward with this extension in 2022.
Definitely.
To think about what year it was, 2022, yeah. But
we lost 2020, it's okay.
It doesn't count. Neither did my birthday that year either, but anyway. But thank you, Colleen. It's a great report. I actually can't believe it's $3 million, even with Bob walking back and forth. When he was feeling bad about himself, he kept walking back and forth, and you still got to $3 million. Super impressive. Anyway, thank you. Well done.
Thank you, Lynn. And Vong.
I want to echo what Vong said earlier about your about your enthusiasm. Oh, it's so contagious, and it makes for something I think, you know, we all up here value our trails, and to have someone like you looking over it or taking care of it gives us such assurance that you're going to keep that standard high, make the community also value it, and it's important because when the city cares for things like this, the community then cares. But when we don't, they can kind of not care as well because it kind of goes to ruin. And so thank you so much for that. That's so refreshing. I think trails are so important because they especially this last year, I have never used it as much as this last year. And it's bonded families. It connects everyone in our community. You see different cultures, you see different ages, you see different species, dogs and us, right? And so and people who go on it differently, a skateboarder to a roller skater to those of us who walk to the runners. And so you see everyone, and then you see how different people dress. You know, some dress very warm, some are so much more expressive. And so, and that, I think that's just the beauty of what the trails give to us. And as you expand, because what COVID did was it allowed us to go, I don't walk in Bob's neighborhood. I'm just going to drive up there, and now we try it. And then allows us to see the inner workings of that. We never walk on Heartland Ranch, right? Because we don't live up there and it's too far. But then let's go and let's see it. And we stop. And then it just brings so much excitement to at least my kids to go, wow, they have this here. This is how they do it there. Or meaning the city and the neighborhoods. And that's just such an awesome part of what we've done. And so my only comment or suggestion is, how do we start to make communities feel that they have ownership, and kind of like what the people did with the signs, right? And then they now also become more guardians, protectors of that area. So that way it's not it's a city, but no, it's yours as well. And how do we maintain it together? I know that we have Adopt a Trail, we have Adopt a Park, all that kind of stuff. But I think some neighborhoods really, especially in Loma Vista, you know, you look across the street, that you see it every day. And so how do we get different parts of the neighborhood to connect. And I said this, I think, many times in a couple projects, getting signage and so that way we can really be clear, you are on a trail and not just the sidewalk, or this will connect to that, and that will really help us even, walk further and be, because you feel safe. I do. My wife prefers going on the trail rather than being on the street, on the sidewalk. Even though it's going in the middle of the neighborhoods where Lynn and I live and Jose, yeah, she prefers being on that trail because she just feels like it's safer, and people, like if she screamed, people would hear, kind of deal, and the people would call someone on their behalf. But at the same time, she feels much safer. She prefers to go on there. So just wanted to thank you for a very thorough report and for giving us a lot of excitement and hope for the future as well.
I appreciate the feedback, and we have considered talking with the consultant about the wayfinding signs as well, just to give a sense of place.
Jose?
I too want to comment on your enthusiasm. It is catchy. I don't know, my interpretation of your numbers and the graphs is that you're documenting staycation, because those millions of people would be at Disneyland, they'd be in Florida, they'd be somewhere else, but because of COVID, they're here. And they're taking advantage of the amenities that we have built that now we know what they're doing. But we're also documenting mental health, an avenue for mental health, and because people need to be out and about, and it's another way of relieving that stress of being cooped up in their homes and being without a mask for a few minutes. And your wife doesn't like sidewalks. I love the sidewalks. And so let's not discount the sidewalks, because we have beautiful sidewalks in the major arterials and avenues. I just love walking the sidewalks. And because I think they're a great amenity too. They're just as big or as welcoming as some of the trails. So maybe market that too, that they too can be trails for, like at where I live. You're right, like Locan, the connectivity is not there yet. But if we can tell the people, well, Temperance connects here or Locan connects there, and now there's more connectivity with those few trails we do have, but they're sidewalks. They're nice sidewalks. So maybe document those too, because they do help. I see my neighbors all around walking for miles, and another thing I see is they're picking up garbage, and they do it on a daily basis, and so it's beautiful what they do. That they're taking care of their sidewalks as if they were amenity that they want to preserve. It's beautiful. So it reflects your enthusiasm. It's what Clovis does. That sign, I equate that with those people I see picking up garbage. So thank you.
Right, everything that you've said. So, I guess, I'll just give an anecdote. People have been calling me, not from Clovis, and this goes to the regional connectivity, or regional, aspect of our trails. And, they say, I've heard about your trails, where would you recommend? And so I just tell them to go to the trailhead over at Sunnyside and Shepherd, and they pick it up, and then they...
So that's why the count is so high there.
Well, it is a really convenient place. And then they get back to me, and because I don't try to oversell it. I say, that's a great place to start. And so they go out there with their families, and when they come back, they are raving about how wonderful it is. Some of them go all the way to Old Town from that location, and they get to enjoy, a super scoop, whatever it is over there at Cora's place. So people are really starting to pick up on it. And I think along those lines, when we started to see the big pickup because of the COVID, I think people may have been introduced to the trail perhaps for the first time as a result of this COVID. And I hope that they just keep coming back to it. And another thing as a result of COVID as well is that we were able to, I think particularly of 13 Prime, who just really took advantage of their location to have a Class A restaurant that serves really good meals on right there on the trail. And so it continues to be an amenity that pays off, and the connection that you have when you just say good morning or good afternoon to somebody, and the little sign like you guys saw up there, you feel like you're part of a community when you see that, and the people picking up the garbage and stuff. It's there's some ownership there. The challenge I think that we have, and I ran what is the Dry Creek Trail, but it's not an official trail. It's the Dry Creek as it connects to Willow. It becomes a canal, and then it connects over there to Willow, next to Regency Theater. Well, I call it Regency Theaters. And so it runs along Letterman Park and keeps on going by the 168. There's a lot of opportunity for us to put these trails in places of Clovis that aren't new. And we've really been smart about how when there's new development to have trails as a part of that, particularly when they're next to a canal. So, I mean, if Measure C can actually do something about getting trails in the old part of Clovis where it makes sense, then that would really be fantastic, because I don't know how we could really fund that unless we had something like Measure C. So anyway, really wonderful news that you were able to enthusiastically deliver, and I was glad to be able to hear it from you. Thanks, Mayor.
Right, thank you. Lynn, go ahead.
Colleen, is there any, right along the Clovis Avenue between Gettysburg and Shaw, there's that park horse equipment that Kaiser installed. Is that used? It still looks like it's clean and well kept, but I don't see people using it a lot. Do you have any sense of the usefulness of that kind of equipment as an amenity along the trail?
You know, I'm not sure. I've driven by a few times, and I have seen people use it as well. I don't know if there's a stigma right now with COVID, like, hey, don't touch anything. So I don't know this past year, but I have seen people use it.
Okay.
They certainly use it over at Dry Creek Park, because they have all kinds of exercise equipment along the trail there. I mean, it's a regular deal. And even during COVID, which, you know, I see some people wearing gloves when they utilize it, but prior to COVID, it was like everybody I would be using it. You know, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
so.
maybe along Clovis Avenue, doesn't quite lend itself, or maybe I don't know. But I'm always curious when I see someone. I'm always surprised. I always say, oh, I don't see that very often. That's why it catches my attention.
Yeah, it's usually really early in the morning that people
are
using, and I don't know when you're driving on Clovis Avenue.
Oh, it's not that early in the morning. I'm not going anywhere anymore, but when I used to, but anyway, so this is just an interesting question. What kind of amenities, what else are you thinking about when you say that, in terms of trail amenities?
You know, definitely, it's always a concern about crossing the main streets, right? That's a big one, but otherwise, trail amenities would be, you know, benches, trash cans, things like that. You know, to make
people love the little water fountains that both are up top that shower them, and that's 100 degrees out, and then a little place on the bottom for their dog to have a bowl. You just push the button and it fills it. Yeah.
I think we should, picking up on your idea, I think I mean, if you had trash bags that you start your walk and you say, hey, do your stretch of the trail, and then you could drop it off somewhere else. I mean, 'cause I always take a trash bag with me when I walk, but if I forget, I mean, there might be something that could encourage that even more. If you don't have a trash bag and you come across, if we had enough trash cans or something, just because I think people do want to do that. And if you come across a piece of trash today, you're not going to pick it up in today's environment particularly. So, I mean, there are probably all kinds of things with this. But I think from the health perspective, it is incredibly important. And that is really, that's a huge aspect of Clovis. Anyway, thanks.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for your enthusiastic report. And I want to join Bob with the parks that are along the trails that were the unfinished trails for our older neighborhoods. If we can get Measure C funding to make linear parks there are 4 or 5 opportunities where we can serve some older neighborhoods that when they were planned, they just assumed they were going to play in their backyard. So that would be great. And I do want to mention a name. When I came here to work in 1987, there was a police officer named Mary Ann Mulring. And Mary Ann retired in the mid-90s, and she had an architecture background. And she was one of the first driving forces behind the Rails to Trails program. And a lot of this, I think she wrote the first grant. She really had a vision. I haven't seen Mary Ann in years, and I don't have to seek her out. But yeah, she was. Yes. Yes. And Mary Ann was a brain trust when it came to those things. You could go to her, and she was almost not quite as good as Dwight drawing things, but she was excellent. And so I wanted to mention her name. It's a read and file report. If we have, well, let's open this to the public. Any member of the public wish to address council on this item? I see no one in chambers. Do we have anybody online?
No.
Mr. Clerk, nothing in writing.
We do not. A quick update on Mary Ann. She's currently working for the county. Steve White stole her about 3 years ago now. Still working.
Wow. Well, that's good news. Okay, moving on. Item 12, consider approval a request for a letter of support for AB 262 to amend the penal code to improve the record clearing process for victims of human trafficking. Luke Serpa is our presenter. Luke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So we got a request. AB 262 is a bill that was introduced by Assemblyman Patterson, and we got a request for his office for a letter of support. Basically, the intent of the bill is there's already a process in place to help victims of human trafficking clear their record and get on with their lives and lead a more, because sometimes the record holds them back from moving on. There's already a process in place. This bill makes some clarifications to that process that makes it easier, and also adds in a few provisions of its own. Basically what it does is it clarifies that a victim can petition the court at any time after they're removed from trafficking. There's no timeline, too soon or too late. It's just any time after they're taken out of that lifestyle, they can petition the court. It also, under current law, there is the ability for judges or counties to waive the penalties, but there's also the ability that they have to pay all of their fines and penalties before they can petition to have their record cleared, and this bill eliminates that provision, just makes it clear that they can get their record cleared without having to pay past fines. And then the last thing it does is it makes it easier for the court, for the victim to appear before the court, either via their counsel or electronically. Many of the victims move out of the area where their crimes were, where they were trafficked, and there are challenges to them coming back, either transportation, or they don't want to face that area again, or just a safety issue, or difficulty if they've moved back to home, wherever that was, and this just makes it easier for them to appear either via their counsel or electronic means. So this is a bill that Patterson has introduced, and he has asked, it has just been introduced recently, I think, and he's asked for a letter of support from the city of Clovis. So we are putting this in front of council for your consideration.
Thank you, Luke. Any questions? Seeing none, I will open this to the public. Any member of the public wish to address council on this item? I see no one in chambers. Do we have anybody on the internet?
No.
Mr. Clerk, we have nothing in writing? Okay, I will come back to council for discussion or for action. Bob?
Yeah, so I had an opportunity to kind of review this a little more closely, and the changes that the bill requests are not significant. So I don't want you to think that we're really doing a real big thing here. But because a lot of what this bill brings attention to is already people can already do that who've been victims of human trafficking. However, anytime that we can ring the bell about, human trafficking, the dangers associated with it, and how we need to provide hope for those people who are caught in that trap, might be of some value. Jim is our assembly member. He's made this request of us. It certainly does no harm. And so, in light of that, I'll move that we send a letter of support for AB 262 to amend the penal code as described.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. City manager comments. Luke?
Actually, we'll do that after the workshop. Right now, we have,
I'm sorry, you're right.
item 13.
Item, workshop for the city of Clovis to conduct a workshop to discuss the impact on ongoing city operations during the COVID-19 state of emergency as declared by the federal government, state of California, county of Fresno, and city of Clovis, and to explore actions that we may take in response.
So, related to the COVID and, first item that I would ask for, before I give the update, the first item I would ask is, consideration of adoption of an emergency order, 2021-01. Who knew when we started this that we would be having emergency orders in 2021, but we're still there. So, one of the things that we have seen is that transportation to and from COVID vaccination sites has been challenging for some senior citizens. We have our Roundup transit service, which is the on-demand service. It's not the stage line. And there's criteria for riding on that basically requires you to have doctor certifications that you are suffering from a disability, and it allows us to ride on our system. What this order would do is it would suspend some of those eligibility requirements and basically say that Roundup is available for anyone over 65 for transportation to and from an appointment for a COVID vaccination that they may have. It's just, there's right now, and I'm going to talk more about the vaccines later, but there's still a bottleneck in the number of vaccines that are available. But we saw it when there was kind of a wide open, hey, anybody can come down if you're over 75. Some people were having trouble getting down to the fairgrounds. So we just think that that if we do this, it makes it easier for some of our residents, and it'll be eligible to anybody within the current service area, which actually exceeds our city limits. It includes our sphere of influence. So it would just waive the requirements that they get the doctor certification that they're suffering from a disability. So staff recommends council approve that emergency order. And that's my presentation on that item, and then we'll get on with the rest of the workshop after you take action.
Great. Any questions for Luke? Lynn?
I just want to say, it's one of the best ideas I've ever heard. It's really great. It's a really wonderful service because people can't get there, and they want to go, and if they can find the vaccine, that's a different problem. But I mean, I just think it's a really important community service. So thanks.
Well, I'd like to take credit for it, but
I do too, but I
Shauna I think Shauna's still here. So
nice job. Yeah,
we'll give it over to Shauna.
Really a nice community service. Just letting people know that it's available. Note to Clovis Roundup, or yes, that you're writing that it's available. That's good. But it's a very that's nice.
Vaughn? Luke, can we consider expanding it so that way you don't have to keep coming back? Oh, now it's to 55, now it's to any. So, whenever the vaccine is available to all, do we want to really just keep it to seniors? Because what if there are high schoolers who don't have the ability to have transportation, right? And so I'm just thinking about that and go, when the vaccine starts to roll out, what will we do to help those who don't have transportation?
So, and we considered that, but there's a couple of factors. We do have a finite capacity to, we only can take so many people. But more importantly, people that are more mobile and ambulatory, there's fixed route transit that they can take to get places. Plus the whole location of where the vaccinations are going to be given, that's kind of evolving as we go along. So, while it would be nice to just do one, say, hey, this is what we're gonna do, for now, we just figured this was the most viable approach. And then if conditions change later, we may, you know, we've talked about things about looking at, do we need to put in, you know, a shuttle bus just running back and forth to vaccination sites, kind of like we do with the fairground, you know, the fair. But we kind of got to see what's going to happen with the vaccination sites and how dispersed they're going to be before we do that.
Jose?
So on the ambulatory side, so who's gonna decide if they're good enough to be transported with the transit? Because there's gonna be a minimum, right, as far as they're capable to be even driven or taken by our service, right? At some point, somebody could be so disabled that they shouldn't be riding our vehicles.
Correct, but I mean, we do transport disabled patients, so we're pretty adept at that. If someone is in a skilled nursing facility because they are completely non-ambulatory and hooked to monitors and stuff, then that would be handled. They wouldn't get an appointment someplace else.
So we already have.
We're not doing medical transport. This is just for people.
We already have the standards established.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is just saying for that right now, if someone is over 65, if they don't have a disability that's been documented and filled out the paperwork with their doctor, then they are ineligible for this service. And what this order is doing is saying that it's open to anybody over 65.
Okay.
Thank you, Jose. Any other comments from council? I will open this to the public. Any member of the public wish to address council on this item?
So far, I've kind of missed notices of when you can go down and get the shots and where you go and everything else. I've kind of missed that. I'm over 65 now. Is there a way, like, you could give out a public notice about when these shots are going to be done? Or is there some way you can set up a kind of sign-up list so that when you know shots are coming up, you can notify over 65 people that have signed up to do it, to go on that?
Well, we could try, although generally the county is the one that's managing when and where and how many vaccinations are being given. We do provide, you know, we could provide links to their webpage. We may already have that on our website, but we cannot sign people up. We cannot offer vaccinations. The individuals have to get a vaccination, and to be honest, right now, and I'll talk a little bit more about the state of vaccinations, there's no appointments available right now anyway, just because there's not enough vaccinations coming down the pipeline. And when there were vaccinations coming through, you know, you had the county down at the fairgrounds was doing it by appointment, although that kind of got overwhelmed and people were showing up. And then you had the vaccinations being given at the sports and ortho clinic. That was kind of a free-for-all that led to long traffic snarls. So we're in contact with the county on some of the changes that they may be making, but there probably won't be any public vaccinations for at least another 2 weeks. But we'll try to put a link to the county's webpage because people have to go there. We can't make an appointment for them. We can't help them get that appointment.
Thank you.
Any other member of the public in chambers wish to address the council on this item? Seeing none, do we have anybody online?
No.
Mr. Clerk, no correspondence?
No.
Okay, I will close public comment and come back to council for action.
I'll make a motion that we adopt emergency order 2021-01, suspending certain city transit service rider eligibility requirements for vaccination appointments.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Luke, and the remainder of your presentation.
So we're actually starting to see some really good trends. I'd say positive, but the cases are going down. This is taken from the state's webpage, a screenshot showing the number of new cases day over day in California. And as you can see, we had the post-holiday peak, but it has been a fairly significant and continuous decline since then. This is Fresno County daily cases, and you can see that it has also continued to decline. So that's all good news. The county is updating their database and their dashboard on their website. This is a screenshot taken from their new dashboard, and it shows the daily cases in Clovis. Now again, when I say in Clovis, that's someone with a Clovis address. It means they could live in Quail Lakes, but they're still being counted as a Clovis case. It's with a Clovis address, but you can see that the decline is continuing in Clovis as well. So that's good news. This is the day-over-day new deaths for Fresno County. It's coming down, although it is still significantly higher than it was last summer. These are the weekly deaths attributed to a Clovis address, and they have fallen significantly from the post-holiday peak, which is very good news, and I think we're all happy to see that. This is the hospitalizations. The blue lines are the hospitalized, confirmed, and suspected COVID patients, and the red is the ICU confirmed and suspected. And again, both of these lines are showing a continuous and significant decline. So, that's another very good sign. Actually, going back to all of these graphs, it's interesting if you look at the graphs of the waves from the 1918 to 1920 influenza pandemic, how similar the timing was. There was a wave in the springtime of 2018. Then there was a wave that actually started a little earlier in the fall and winter and then it dropped down, and then there was another smaller wave in the late spring, April, May-ish. But again, that was affected too by the mobilization and demobilization from World War I. But the timing is eerily similar to this, and we're seeing the wave is coming down from the second wave, and that's good news. The county and regional status, we have 58 adjusted new cases per 100,000. That is going down. That is down from 75.2 when we last met a couple weeks ago. The 15.3 positivity rate is down from 18.3, and the 17.9 health equity quartile positive rate is down from 19.5. So those numbers are trending in the right direction too. We are still well above the thresholds to get out of the purple tier, so we remain in purple tier. The regional stay-home order, the state is still reporting that we have 0% ICU availability, but I don't know if they're still really tracking that diligently. As you see, the numbers in ICU are dropping. It would seem that we have some, but the state has lifted the order based on projections that we will be above 15% within 4 weeks. So that's good. Now, one other thing, I told you earlier I was going to talk about vaccines. The supply of vaccines that the county is getting continues to be the limiting factor. I have been told that Fresno County has plans and could administer 38,000 to 50,000 vaccines a week, and I think this week they got 8,000. So it is a supply problem. There's a bunch of conjecture going as to what they're going to do about that, and there may be some changes coming out. But right now, for this week and next, just about all of the available vaccines are going toward the second shots for the people that got their first shot. It's going toward law enforcement, certain agricultural groups, and other targeted working groups, and likely no new appointments for general population vaccinations until February 15th. And that's just based on, they're getting so many, if they're getting 8,000 a week and they've got, 5,000 that need their second shot this week, they have to give those and then give them to law enforcement and some of the other targeted. So that's where the emphasis is right now. There's talk about, not only do we have different vaccines that hopefully will be coming online, there's talk about changing the vaccine protocols, and the county is actually, I'm told, looking at some different sites for vaccinations, but I really don't want to start any conjecture on that until we have a little bit more firm information. One other thing I put together, and I put this together originally for our own use because at staff level, we get a lot of calls as to, because Clovis is not out there using our police department to enforce the health orders. There are restaurants and businesses that are open in Clovis that aren't open elsewhere. And we've been getting some calls accusing us of being the reason the county is spiking and, why everything is closed down. So this is a rough comparison. When I say it's rough, it's because, again, the county reports the cases based on their address, not necessarily their jurisdictional limits. So, for instance, as I said earlier, someone living in Quail Lakes would have a Clovis address. Coalinga has a large surrounding area, but this is a graph showing the number of cases reported for those addresses divided by that city's population. And you can see here that these are all the cities in Fresno County. This is the Fresno County rate of infection, and this has been since the pandemic started.
Just to be clear, Fresno County means those people are in unincorporated areas?
That's everybody in Fresno County, counting all Fresno County employees. I mean residents, whether they're in. It's everyone plus the incorporated area. That's the Fresno County.
Okay.
And then the yellow, now, and these are true jurisdictional because we know how many people live in Fresno County that have had the disease so far, and likewise in California. But approximately 8% of Fresno County residents and a little bit less than that of California residents have been infected. This is since the pandemic began, and this is the percentage of Clovis addresses that have been infected. So while this certainly, there's a whole bunch of factors that go into this. It has to do with who has jobs that can work from home, who has jobs in packing sheds where they're shoulder to shoulder, who has access to health care, who has access to internet. There's a whole bunch of factors that go into this. But the only reason I wanted to show this is kind of to show that our relaxed enforcement toward these health orders isn't causing the problem. So I just wanted to show that.
What does that represent? How many percentage?
Clovis, boy, I should have brought the spreadsheet. It's 5.6% or 5.8% of Clovis residents have been a confirmed PCR test. These are all based on confirmed PCR tests.
I've done something similar, and your numbers are pretty much similar to mine. I have us at 6.7%. We're the lowest city of this county, of all incorporated cities, and if you add all our numbers, all the incorporated cities numbers, as reported by Fresno County, so the numbers are skewed by Fresno County if they're skewed at all. They're at 8.4, so we're the lowest city, and there's some cities that are out of control, and as compared to what we are. So as far as how concentrated the bug is in our city as compared to other cities, our concentration is low, and it has been. I've been tracking it for months, and ours is always the lower number as compared to our population. So we're talking apples to apples, so it's per capita, and I have us as higher than your number. Mine's 6.7%, and I go by Fresno County's numbers. Unfortunately, their dashboard's horrible. I've asked our supervisor, why is it so bad? He actually talked to the good doctor while I was standing next to him, and he says that the dashboard, they're going to revamp the dashboard, but they're revamping the dashboard for almost 2 months now, and they haven't come up with a new system. So you showed us a graphic that I haven't been able to find at the county system.
So I can share that. I just got that link this morning from the county. And,
so it's not public yet.
I don't know that it's public, or I don't know if you have to know how to find it publicly. The state just changed their websites on this too, making it more complicated, but it breaks it down by, you can search just by jurisdiction, but again, it's not really jurisdiction, it's by address.
It's mostly,
And you have, so if somebody has a Biola address, there's Biola numbers are given there. Non-incorporated areas that happen to have an address, so a zip code are.
it's mostly zip codes. It's not real jurisdiction. That's why the numbers are skewed based on zip code.
Yeah.
So I've done it all along, and Clovis has consistently been the lowest number per capita. So you're right. We being less burdensome on our businesses and our people hasn't been the consequence as some may accuse us of being.
And our friends in Coalinga probably are skewed because they have at least one correctional facility.
Well, they have two. They have two. They have Pleasant Valley and they have the state hospital.
Yeah, so Claremont Care Center. That's true.
And the new dashboard actually lists those people that are prisoners or in care facilities and such like that for each jurisdiction as well. So they are improving their system. It's just they're kind of in a transition, and you kind of hunt for it. I can get that link out.
I want to thank you for, if I may, thank you for putting this graph up, because, you know, when we took that step of choosing to have the state enforcement agencies enforce what it is the governor was doing, you know, I got to tell you, I was nervous about it, but I think we all felt that it was the right thing to do. So you never know when you make a move like that, and you are, you know, subjecting yourself to criticism that, you know, it can't be taken lightly. I mean, we're not talking about, you know, money here. We're talking about lives, and so it seems as though whatever it is that we've done, I mean, even the Trails report earlier, it feels as though these numbers back up what our hunch was back then, and so I'm glad to have data to back up the decision that we made, and I'm glad that you gave the caveat that, you know, there's a lot of factors that have gone into why these numbers are so low. It's not just you know, what that decision that we made back then. There's a lot of things about Clovis which make it unique. But anyway, it's good to know that at least the places that have chosen to open up are not causing such a significant problem, if a problem at all, such a significant problem that we're higher than some of, well, in fact, any other community in the county of Fresno. In fact, we're lower. So anyway, I'm glad you put that together, because I've been nervous about it for a while.
Thank you, Bob. Any member of the public in chambers wish to address council on this item? Seeing none, do we have anybody online?
No.
Mr. Clerk, we received no correspondence?
No.
Okay, this is, well, we're done with the workshop. Now, Luke, you said you had something also, right? City manager comment?
Under city manager comments, and it probably could have gone on a workshop because it's kind of related to COVID. Just wanted to give council a heads up. We are preparing our 5-year financial forecast. We'll be presenting that to council the first meeting in March, is our usual schedule. And council will recall that when COVID hit, we really did not know what to expect as far as revenue impacts, and we took some pretty drastic measures. We didn't have to lay off anybody, but we froze a bunch of vacant positions. And that predominantly hit public safety and predominantly the police department. The police department had 9 vacancies and they were frozen. And the police department has done a superb job with 100 sworn officers. But as we are starting to get data in and we're going through the forecast, we're starting to see that things are, at least revenue-wise, better than we anticipated. Still maybe not as good as if COVID hadn't hit, but nowhere near the impact that we thought we were going to have. As we're seeing revenues come in higher than our kind of dire projections, a couple of priorities. Our first priority was to if we could not touch the emergency reserve at all, to leave the emergency reserve alone. Just because kind of a saying I've shared with some of you. I've never seen things so bad they couldn't get worse. So that, if I can save that emergency reserve for the next emergency, all the better. So, and it looks like we're going to be able to achieve that. We won't have to tap into the emergency reserve. Not only that, the revenues are coming in high enough that I've already given the police chief the green light to fill a couple more of those frozen positions and to fill probably 3 more of them by July 1. So we are, and we'll have a more in-depth report on this when we do our 5-year forecast, but we just got finished running the scenarios and putting the thing together, and it's actually, I guess the secret to happiness is low expectations, and we had such low expectations coming into, we kind of expected bad things, and it's still very bad, and our revenues are reduced, but not as much as possible. So it's actually going to be a pretty positive 5-year forecast. So even before I bring it back to council and we go through the budget amendment, I'm telling the police chief to start filling positions to get those bodies back out in the street and give his department some relief. So just want to let you know that's going on.
Mr. Mayor? Joe, so did I hear this right? So these are already authorized positions that will not require budget amendments, or they will require budget amendments?
We had, and I got to talk to finance about that. They may require budget amendments because the positions were authorized, but we froze the funding for them. So there was no funding because we thought our revenues were going to be lower. But we're going to have the funding for them, and we had said when we did that that we would be evaluating it constantly through the year, and if we saw the ability to do so, we would be bringing these positions back on board. So once we get through the forecast and the estimate to close process, there may be a reconciliation. But these were positions that we had frozen, but that they're already in the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Lynn?
Just a question, when you come back with that forecast, could you bring back a refresher course for at least me on the revenue we get from online sales and how that sales tax finds its way to us? And every city in California is probably thinking the same thing, but how is that formula adequate? Or if that's the shift that we see in shopping, or at least a trend, is there something we need to do as a city to advocate? I don't know, I just can't remember enough about it, but I'd like to just understand that again. So if you can bring that back as part of your forecast, that would be helpful.
Sure.
Thanks.
Bob?
Yeah, so the Business Journal has published a piece related to Sears and Clovis.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if we knew about that or what impact that's going to have on our community.
Yes, we were aware of it. That Sears was, and Andy can jump in here anytime if I misstate anything or if he has more information. That Sears was, it was underperforming, on a per square footage basis, but it was still lingering. Ideally we would get something else in there that produced a more reasonable, amount of business. Andy can jump in here. I don't know, he may have some more details on the timing as to when it's going to close and what the process is going to look like. But we are aware of it and have reached out to the mall management and just to let them know, try to find out how we can help them.
Yeah, so timing-wise, we're not sure at this point how long the closure process will take. Typically, it's a few months while they go through any kind of liquidation or contractual obligations to wind the operations that are down. From an economic development perspective, I really see it as an opportunity. As Luke said, the store was not a high performer relative to our other retail per square foot production in sales tax and or job activity. So seeking a user or users for that space in the long run could be a good thing for the city in producing more jobs and revenue for our community.
Can I just comment on that?
Lynn?
I think maybe this is an opportunity for us. I really would like us to do some thinking about vacant big box stores, and here's an opportunity. So how you divide them up, what they look like differently. This won't be the only one. We're going to have vacancies in other sizes, but I do think the impact of a big box store or a store like Sears, not a big box store in this case, but I think is really significant. So just would like to keep that on the top of your list, and maybe we have a workshop with the planning commissioner or something, but I do think the changing shape of, it kind of goes to the online sales tax question as well, but the changing face of retail, we are, we are better than really anybody in reinventing uses, so what happens to Sears or, so I just want to put that back on the top of your list. Don't want to forget about, some thinking about that.
It's very high on my list.
How high is it, Andy?
And while we're talking about that, Andy, I remember having a conversation with Dwight about a mall in Southern California that transferred the uses from big box to high-density housing. I would actually like to know a little bit more about that too, and then even know where it's at so I can make a road trip and take a look at it. That might resolve some of our density and affordable housing issues. Jose?
The uniqueness of Sears is that it buds out of the mall, so it could actually be this independent building. And other uses that is still retail and job creating can still exist there, because it kind of is independent of the mall itself, because it has two exits independent of the mall, because the mall would be the third entry point. So there's still possibilities that it could be a job generator and a tax generator.
So to speak to the test case and all those things, I recently presented some ideas for the mall property as part of a certification process I was going through to some of my peers. So I've spent a lot of time thinking it through, and I'm looking forward to pushing that ball forward.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, we're done with city manager comments. Bob?
So while John is putting up a photograph, I do want to compliment you, Andy. I'm relaying a compliment, really. Some people in the real estate industry and people involved with the Clovis Chamber gave me some compliments related to your presentation at Wake Up, I think it was Wake Up Clovis event. And I think the Business Journal did a really good piece on what it is that you communicated. So thank you for your continued efforts on behalf of the city. So I stopped by this place on a run on the trail. This is... No, they weren't open. They weren't serving beer, but I heard about this place. I feel like this is the Andy moment. Machine Head Brewing, I was getting my hair cut, and one of the people were talking about Machine Head Brewing, which was a new brewery in the city of Clovis that was trying to get going, and it was during COVID, and they were struggling trying to figure out how it is that they could start serving their beer. And I had heard of some opportunities through the use of food trucks to have food served, so that would allow the brewery to actually serve their beer. I put the person in touch with Andy, and then they now, and in fact, Nancy and I went there last night, and they had the Philly cheesesteak food truck there, which was fantastic. And their beer was really good. But this is just a segue into how along the trail, if we've got House of Pendragon over there at Willow and Knees. We've got Machine Head Brewing, which is in one of the industrial parks right along the trail. There's a new brewery that's opening up called Crow and Wolf, which is another industrial park, but it's also along the trail. And then we have Tactical Ops, which is along the trail as well. So there are some places that call an ale trail just kind of another word for a beer crawl. But this is really an opportunity for us to, I guess, help market these breweries in the city of Clovis. And I could really see an opportunity for people just to hit, all of those four at least as they just walk down the trail. And it's a fun little, experience to go into some of these local breweries. So Andy wants to say something as well, I think. Yeah, right.
So these breweries has been a sustained effort for many years to encourage this kind of use. Sean Miller and I this morning were working on copy for basically a guide to the ale trail. those exact terms. So it's definitely under development and should be in partnership with the chamber coming out relatively soon.
I almost feel like doing a run and you have to stop at well, maybe that's not a good idea.
Lynn?
ALO run, I'm pretty sure those are there. The only thing I think I would just say, going back to the vaccine question, is I got an email from a CERT volunteer, again, a different CERT volunteer, who's anxious to do something and wonder if there would be a way we could engage CERT volunteers in a vaccine clinic in Clovis. And I tried to just briefly say it's county, blah, blah, blah. But there may be, when the supply is greater, we may be a location at some point because we could manage it well. So I just said I would raise the question. So I think there's interest in that crowd. I understand many of them are over 65, and I get all of the limitations. But as we think about that, if there's a chance to engage them, that might be something that they could participate in. So just wanted to pass that along. I saw a great story on the news where someplace in, I don't know where, Georgia, the way they sped up their lines at their vaccine clinic was they brought in the Chick-fil-A manager. That nobody manages drive-thrus better in the South than Chick-fil-A. And so they brought in the Chick-fil-A guy to say, what are we doing wrong? And this guy had these cars just zoom, zoom, zoom. It was kind of cute. So I thought, well, In-N-Out, Dutch Brothers, they might have a different problem. But anyway, maybe they're not a good example. But anyway, I thought it was kind of like, who did you bring and how would you do that? And he said it was Chick-fil-A, and the guy was great. And it was kind of funny to watch him because it looked like a Chick-fil-A drive-thru. Who knew?
We did a pretty good job without Chick-fil-A, with our drive-through
Yeah, exactly.
testing sites.
Exactly.
We had that dialed pretty well in, and we were talking to our partners on that about converting it over, because the demand for testing has fallen way off. So we had talked about converting it over to a vaccination site. It's just getting the vaccines is the limiting factor.
Vaughn?
Just wanted to report out, I was in a meeting, and thank Andy for also joining last Friday, because we didn't finish our Housing and Economic Development Committee meeting for the league, so finished it up on Friday and made 2 recommendations to, I guess, to the policy committee to see what they'll do next. So,
Jose?
I was at a meeting too, the North Kings GSA, not much to report from that. Just have a question for Luke on the county's handling of COVID and how they, now I lost my train of thought. It's old age. Embrace it. No, it was an important question as far as their dashboard. Let them know that they need to fix it, and I will let them know too. I already have a letter written and ready to go, but because they need to be more transparent. It's almost like they don't want to share information with the public, and will they give, this is the important point, will they add vaccination numbers to case numbers? So infection numbers plus vaccination numbers, because the total of both will give us how we get closer to herd immunity or community immunity. Because the more people that have had either the disease or the vaccination will give us a bigger number. As far as, if you look at some of these cities, for instance, they're already at almost 15% of having been infected. So at a certain point, with vaccination, they will be at, and a lot of these 15% cities, it's their youth, right? So the youth plus the elderly people who have been vaccinated will get us quickly to the 50%. Therefore, they'll have community immunity, and their cities will actually be safer because now they have herd immunity. So are they going to contribute to the general public? How many in a community have they vaccinated? It's an important number, and I don't see anybody doing that. So, see, I'm not that old. why wouldn't you do that? Because.
So,
I don't disagree, I just, that's an interesting question about what the county could report, but the vaccines are coming from the counties right now, so they should know that. I mean, I think it's a good point.
the state is looking at revamping their entire record tracking,
Because a lot of these numbers of infection it's a lot of young people who are partying, right? Therefore, and they're surviving. The great majority of the people who have been infected by COVID are surviving and are giving us natural immunity, natural herd immunity. Now, we have to protect the vulnerable. That's why 65 plus and those with comorbidities are getting the vaccination. So now you add the 65% of those fools that are there partying, plus the elderly who are being vaccinated, you'll get to herd immunity faster. And that'd be nice to know.
Thank you, Jose. I just have a few things to report out. I was at an air board meeting earlier in January, and it had been the first meeting since November. And as of December 31st, all agricultural burns in California are curtailed. And the next CARB meeting, Air Resources Board meeting, is at the end of this month. And the agricultural community is lobbying the governor to come up with a scenario where they can do some limited ag burning, because they have like 6,000 acres of orchards and vineyards that need to be tended to and planted, and they can't do anything until they get rid of what they got. So I wrote a letter of support to the governor, and at the COG meeting last Thursday night, I asked if other mayors would join, and several of them did, so I sent them a copy of my letter, and inside the envelope that went to the governor was one of those window decals, "My job depends on ag." So I thought he might enjoy that. That's true. From my day job, the transportation, the president signed an emergency executive order requiring everyone in transportation, whether you're on a bus, whether you're on a plane, you have to be masked, and you have to be masked at the airports. When you enter technically, by the executive order, as soon as you come onto the curtilage of the airport, you're supposed to be wearing a mask. And that goes into effect, probably right now. So we're going to be doing some public education through the airport, and I'll share it with the city, because we'd hate to see people get there and not be able to fly. I think we're doing very well from what I've seen, but this is going to become a potential conflict with people who are anti-mask. So that might be a problem. Not on this council.
No, I don't mean here.
Yes. And lastly, Jose and I have a friend named John Rivera, and the Riveras were pillars in this community, and still are, and we're, right over here, right across the street from your house, right? And didn't your families come out together, the Riveras and the Flores?
Had it not been for the Riveras, the Flores wouldn't have been here.
Right. John passed last week. John was a parole agent. I've known John for 35 years. You have known him all your life. He passed with COVID. I'll be doing a proclamation for him, but the Rivera family is a pillar in this community, and his passing will be, it's terrible. Other than that, I have nothing. Does anybody else have anything? Okay, we will be in adjournment. Thank you.